He was at the University of Houston.
That was the first time I ever went to Houston.
He was shooting a gun in it. Good shot.
Yep.
When's the last time you shot the gun? A gun. Any gun.
Probably several years. I don't do much of that anymore. So,
Who was the good shot? Were you a good shot? Did you teach him how to shoot a gun? No?
No.
Who taught you how to shoot?
books.
Scoutmaster?
Books, just studied it in books. And got out there and did it. So,
He's a hard worker, isn't he?
He can be. And he usually is. One thing about Woody, when he's had enough, that's it. He's got to stop for a while. And I don't know that I've ever told you this, Woody, but I always thought that was a blessing. That kept you going.
well, I think you got me sized up right.
You don't look like you're about 60.
Well, yeah, there are people who think I look a lot older.
Woody. He's a joker, too.
Yeah.
Woody's probably, he may be my most faithful friend. He's one of the most faithful friends a person could ever have.
Your name is the only one I remember him mentioning just about every time I saw him.
Well, how about that? Wow, God's good, isn't he?
And this is the first time I remember having ever met you.
Well,
And I may not remember that for very long.
that's okay. Well, maybe I won't either, and we can meet each other again
Oh,
for the first time.
I look forward to that. I'm not eager to get to heaven, but I know I'm going there, and I know it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
It just really is.
Yep.
I would like to think I could write a book about it. But having never written a book, period, I probably won't. Not that I have
Yeah.
intend.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I haven't never been there. I don't know what I would say. I did a series of messages many years ago on heaven. I tried to read a lot and get a lot of people's opinions about it and everything.
We aren't supposed to know.
No, the Bible says, eye has not seen and ear has not heard what God has prepared for those who love Him. So there's no way we've accidentally thought about it. So it's going to be something.
But in the last time that I've been aware of much of anything, I've become very close to the Lord. He and I can have some real delicious conversations.
Well, that's good.
He has a sense of humor.
Maybe you should write those down.
Huh?
Maybe you should write down your conversations.
Maybe so. Maybe so. But who would ever believe?
We would.
Yeah.
Woody would.
Woody doesn't believe everything I say.
Well, when you tell me you got to Shreveport in an hour, I found that hard to believe.
From where?
Here.
From here? Yeah, that'd be pretty tough to do.
Yeah.
In an hour, that'd be pretty hard to do.
Well, I guess. I guess.
How far is Shreveport from here? 3 hours?
Well, it takes most of us about 4.
Most of us. You know, I had to go there one time to repossess a car. When I was in the car business, I had to drive to Shreveport. I flew to Shreveport from Fort Worth and repossessed a car and drove it back.
Okay.
I used to be in the car business, and so
Goodness.
that was my Only time to Shreveport. Well, I've been
Enter line 1.
to actually go there.
Enter line 1.
Yeah. It was an interesting experience.
Shreveport's a pretty good place to live close to.
Now, is there another city that's close to Shreveport?
I did. We lived in Shreveport.
Is
Bossier City's
Bossier
right
City?
across the border, across the river. There's
So
the
they're right
Red
next to each
River,
other.
and Bossier's on one side, Shreveport's on the other.
Shreveport's bigger than Bossier City, right?
Yeah. But Bossier has the Air Force Base, Barksdale Air Force Base, so that's part of why Bossier exists.
How about that?
To support the crewmen.
Hadn't thought about Barksdale in a long time, but one of my earliest memories, when people asked me where I was from, I was just a little child. I said, I'm just from a little town, but I live close to the biggest airport in the nation. Barksdale was about the biggest at that time.
Wow.
I thought that was really something.
Well, it was.
Proud of little things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've sure seen a lot of things change over time, haven't you?
Ooh, yes, I have. Basics have remained the same. If you believe in God, you have a firm foundation in Him, you don't have to worry about the changes so much. But if you don't, you're in serious trouble. And I loved going down to South Louisiana to visit my grandparents. My dad was the oldest of 8. My mother was the youngest of 16.
16?
16 children.
Wow. Can you imagine if you'd had 16 boys? Can you imagine if you would have had 16 boys?
I wouldn't be here to tell you about it. No matter how good they were, I wouldn't. I've lost the train
You were
of thought.
talking about going down to visit your grandparents in South Louisiana. And you were saying Papa was the oldest of 8 and Nanny was the youngest of 16, and that's where you were.
Well, it's
Now, whose grandparents were they? I mean, whose parents were these that you were visiting?
the whole thought's gone. Don't know where we went,
Were you going to see
but that's okay.
Papa's parents or Nanny's parents? Were you going down to see Papa's parents or Nanny's parents or both?
They lived. This is not what I was intending to say, and I don't have a clue what that was. But Mother and Dad lived across the creek, 6 Mile Creek from one another. And every 4th of July, all the years I was growing up, we'd have a family reunion. And you can imagine how many people were there.
Wow.
But all of the kids were pretty good kids. And we'd go to the shallow side of the creek, and the adults didn't need to watch after us too much. We didn't necessarily appreciate having an adult look after us all the time.
I understand that.
Another thing that has not changed.
No, that's right.
There was something I wanted to say about my dad's
Well, you like to
parents.
talk about Papa, so your dad. You can.
He was, I'm certain, the finest man I ever knew. And his picture, and I wonder what he is, giving new life to me. Got me out of the bed.
Good deal. Yep. We had the picture on her dresser, and we moved it where she can see it from the bed, and she's pretty fond of him.
He's just a great man.
What made him the finest man you ever knew?
His fairness in all things.
Mm.
He didn't put up with, he was a teacher and a principal and a superintendent of schools in our parish. And there were some pretty dinky high school boys that played hooky a lot. And Daddy would say, "Okay, fellas, you know what's coming. I'm going to give you a spanking. If you want the spanking and want to get, I'm going to punish you." I think that's what he said. He said, "And if you want a spanking, we can get it over with right now. But if you don't, you can work it out on the school grounds." And some of the men that were bigger men than Daddy was, he was tall, but he was slender. And he would, they would say, "Mr. Sickler, you whipped me once before, and I believe I'm going to work on your schoolyard." And several of them did that. But even he was not fearful to stand up for what he believed. Mm. And that always struck me as being a very worthy trait to have. And I learned from childhood, from my dad, that was a good goal to set for myself, and tried to do so.
What do you remember about him, Woody?
He cast a long shadow.
Yeah, he did.
He had great control over his tongue. You never heard him say anything he hadn't thought through first. So I don't think he was capable of being impulsive.
I don't think so. I don't recall having ever heard it. And I would get out in the yard and work with Daddy as I was growing into teenage. All day long, if he'd let me sit out there with him. I'd cut grass, pick tomatoes, do whatever needed to be done. Mother could call me into the house, which she would do if she knew where I was, and tell me there were dirty dishes in the sink. And there were always dirty dishes in the sink. She had to plead a little bit to get me to do what she wanted as soon as she wanted it done. I'd get it done, but let me tell you something that I don't know I've ever told Woody. How it came to be that I had 4 sons. I was one of 4 daughters. And we picked on each other a lot, like girls do. From childhood on up, we just weren't satisfied with things the way with anything the way things were. And I determined as I got older and started dating that if ever I got married and was going to have children, I didn't want any girls. I'd take boys. So I prayed when Bob and I got married. I said, "God, if you give me children, please give me boys. Don't give me any girls." Yes. Because I don't think I could have any that behaved. So I got my wish.
You did.
My prayer.
You did.
And I know God answers prayers. I know that.
Yeah. Boy, there's something you can tell people.
Just be careful what you ask for.
Be careful what you ask for, you may get it.
May get, well, for sure.
Was it Garth Brooks that had that song, Thank God for Unanswered Prayers? There's a song he made of unanswered prayers. Said, I'm thanking God for unanswered prayers. Ones that he asked, he's glad God didn't answer. Now, what was your maiden name?
Sigler.
Sigler.
S-I-G-L-E-R. German name.
Yeah. What kind of a name is Childress? What kind of a name is Childress?
Childress, don't have a clue.
English.
You do.
English?
England is where it came from.
How did you meet your husband?
My mother's maiden name was Dowries. That's pure French.
Wow. So where did you meet Bob?
I was 27. Mother was scared to death I was not going to marry. And he was a good man, but there were a lot of reasons that I shouldn't have married him, but I did anyway. And he took care of everybody's needs before his family's. After I had had the fourth son and had been home taking care of four little children, because you weren't very big when I had the fourth one.
I was 10 when John was born.
I was just tired. I needed to get out of the house and away from kids. And he had told me that he would be there to take care of the boys while I went to the grocery store. And I waited and waited for him to come, and finally it was too late to go to the grocery store. He came home and he said, well, you know, who was the doctor that he cared so much for?
Dr. Guy? Dr. Guy?
No. You were named for Dr. Guy.
Okay. Another doctor name didn't come to mind. That's the only doctor name that came to mind.
If someone would ask him to do something with them or for them, he would do it. He'd drop everything and do it. And someone had done it that day. And he'd gone with his friend rather than come take care of his family. And that was the last straw. I said, it's not going to change. It's going to be like this forever. And I can't take it. So I learned things about him and myself that day. I wasn't as strong as I thought I was. And he was, I guess I could say, as good to others as I thought he was. He was good to everybody else. And he would never thought he was unkind or unfair to his family. Wouldn't have occurred to him. But
You know what? My mother says the same thing about my dad. I thought you were talking about my dad when you said that, because that's what she would say today about my dad, that he cared about everybody else more than he cared about his own family. And
that's hard to deal with.
yeah, she would say, I mean, I thought, when you were saying that, I thought that I could see, I thought you were my mother saying it, because she would say the same thing. She has said the exact same thing.
Now you know I'm not old enough to be your mother.
That's right. I said, my mother would have has said the same thing. No, you're not. So, I'm too old.
I'm kidding.
I know.
I'm kidding, you know that.
Yeah, that was true of my dad too.
I've always had a sad sense of humor. Tried to pass it on to the boys, and they just feel like I have a sad sense of humor.
I think I've learned from your lessons. You understand my jokes. So, you haven't talked about your education and your nursing career yet.
best thing I ever did was go into nursing. From a small child, it's amazing how I remember many things from my childhood. Childhood seemed, I bet I know why. I bet it was because my little sister was so sick and then died.
Mm.
And I had to remember things that I would more ordinarily have told my mother, but she was with my little sister all the time. But all I ever wanted to be was a nurse. I wanted to be a nurse. Then I got a scholarship in high school to go to Louisiana College, and I entered the School of Nursing down there. And they had their affiliation with the hospital in Alexandria, and something happened and they lost that affiliation, so they closed the school. The director of nurses that was down there at that time asked me if she could recommend me to Johns Hopkins. She was a Hopkins grad. And I said, tell me what Johns Hopkins is and where it is. I was from a small town. And she told me it was in Baltimore. It was a school of nursing, finest in the nation. And I said, Mother would never let me go that far away from home. And surely enough, when I told Mother about it, she said, you can't go that far away from home. I knew that. So I kept thinking and thinking about it, and I said, there has to be a way I can appeal to something Mother likes that would let her let me go. So Daddy had meetings in the Northeast and in many places, education meetings from time to time. And he always wanted to go, but he wouldn't leave Mother. And Mother didn't think she could afford to go. And I said, Mother, if you let me go up there, you can travel with Daddy. I said, he will have a reason to go, his meeting, and you'll have a reason to go to see your daughter. It worked.
Did it?
It worked. I wore her down. She finally let me go. And those were the finest years of my life, I guess.
So you have your nursing degree from Johns Hopkins? Johns Hopkins? Is that
Johns
right?
Hopkins, I don't have I don't know where my degree is, but I have a graduation class picture
Wow.
hanging in my room.
Wow.
Your diploma's at our house. Your diploma is at our house. Your diploma is at our house.
Oh, is it?
So she went to Johns Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a prestigious school.
Oh, I really realized how their qualifications were when, after several years, I had been working as a nurse, and I found out they had closed the school, and when I found someone that knew what had happened, they had not gotten students that had the qualifications they wanted for the young nurses. And I thought if a school recommends its program that well, it's bound to have given me a lot and will give anybody else that graduates from there.
Wow.
But I had some great classmates. Billy Graham's sister-in-law was one of my classmates.
Wow.
And I went and visited in Montreat with Jennifer several times. And
You were in her wedding, weren't you? You were in her wedding, weren't
I
you?
was in her wedding.
Who conducted the wedding?
Can't think of his name.
You just mentioned his name.
Billy Graham.
Wow, you were at a wedding that Billy Graham officiated. Wow. Wow.
But I've just had a very good life.
Wow, yeah.
Really good life. But when I think of my life, primarily the first thought I have of it now, at this stage in my life, and with the things that I've gone through and whatnot, my 4 sons are the greatest blessing God gave me. I've seen you blessed, but I've said much less than that.
I'm just thanking God for your memory fading.
That's part of it.
Did Woody ever do anything that made you upset? Did Woody ever do anything that upset you?
Oh my goodness, yes. I remember the first car you wrecked.
I was going to say, we're about to talk about wrecking cars.
Woody wrecked a car?
A is singular.
Yeah, he wrecked your car.
Which one are you thinking about?
Ford.
That Maverick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were turning
I was turning left to go into the church parking lot. There was youth night at church, and I was supposed to do something. So I was in a hurry.
You were supposed to speak at church. Well, you fixed that all right. Actions spoke louder than words.
You could have done a lot less to get out of that.
I was trying to get there on time.
What'd you do, cut in front of somebody?
Well, I turned left on a 4-lane road, and a car came from behind the line of cars and ran into the right side of mine, of Mom's. Yeah, it totaled it. It was.
I think he was very happy that if it had to happen, it happened in front of the church.
Well, I never have wanted that much attention. I got plenty of attention.
You got plenty of attention. But I didn't get you plenty of attention. The kind that I deep down thought you didn't deserve. You wrecked my car.
Yeah, it was pretty torn up. It never
We
drove
always had
again.
insurance.
What?
We always had insurance.
Well, with 4 boys, you sure needed it.
That was a good idea.
Yep.
Speaking of cars, let me tell you this is just something that occurred when I was a youngster as well. But not a youngster. But anyway, in Coshada, Mother and Dad lived next door to Mr. and Mrs. Hankins. They were an elderly couple that had no children of their own. But they thought that Mother and Daddy's family were their family. And he was tax collector of the parish. I believe that's right, isn't it?
Could be. I don't know what he did.
I believe that's what he was. And we would take them over fresh vegetables and whatnot from the garden and things, and just drop in and say hello every once in a while. And it really bothered them when we started leaving for college because their girls were going away from home. I have an older sister, and she had gone to Northwestern. And Mr. Hankins, when I went to, after I came back from Hopkins, my dad, in knowing other school people in other parishes, had mentioned the fact that I was a Hopkins grad to the president of Northwestern. And the president asked if he would make an appointment with me, asked Daddy if he'd make an appointment with me. And we talked for a good long while, and then he made an appointment with the director of nurses in Shreveport. The college was in Natchitoches, and Coshada was in the middle between the two places. And Mr. Hankins, he always had plenty of money. That was, I don't know where it came from, but it was none of my business where it came from. But anyway, he sent his, he was real concerned because I was going to have to leave Coshada to move to Shreveport so I wouldn't have to travel to, I didn't have a way of traveling to Shreveport to teach. He sent his colored man down to a car dealership there in Coshada, had him check out he had called the owner of the dealership and told him what car he wanted his colored man to bring to his house to let him examine it. And he liked it. And he bought that car and gave it to me.
Wow.
I never paid him a penny for it.
Wow.
I didn't know people did that. But
Wow.
he did. He didn't want me too far away from home.
Wow.
So,
Wow, what a story.
I hadn't thought of that in years and years until I got a little bit older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't wreck that one.
Now, did you teach nursing
I taught nursing in
at Northeastern? At Northeastern or Northwestern?
I practiced nursing. I studied at Hopkins for a year after I graduated, just doing general medical nursing. Medicine is my field.
Yeah.
And then they asked me to be head nurse after that year of their medical ward, one of the medical wards. And I was there for that year. And then I was ready to go home. I felt like I had a good understanding of what learning and teaching was supposed to be about. And I went home at that time.
And did you teach at Northwestern? Did you teach in college?
Taught at the Northwestern School of Nursing. Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
Is that it? I never considered it
To
impressive.
be a college teacher, that's impressive.
I was from a family of teachers.
Oh. Well, it was just what for you to do, huh?
Yeah.
And then did you nurse too, or did you just teach?
I would, on breaks from teaching at summer and whatnot, I would teach, I would work at the health department, both in Shreveport and in Bossier,
Really?
and Just, I thought I was supposed to work.
Did you have these boys when you worked?
Boys thought I was supposed to work, but you know, every one of them, except Woody, put themselves through college. Woody got a scholarship. I couldn't afford to put
Sure.
3 other boys
Yeah.
through school. But somewhere or other, they got the feeling that they needed a college education, and that they would find jobs that would pay their way. That I'm proud of.
Yeah. This guy earned a scholarship. Were there any other options for you other than University of Houston?
The Army.
Okay.
Let's do one or the other. Either join the Army or get the shooting scholarship.
Is there a contest to get the scholarship?
Yeah, they had a senior match. And I went down and won the senior match. Got the scholarship. So,
Do you know it didn't cost me anything to go home?
Really? Wow. So you got scholarships too?
I guess I did. Yes, I did.
and your nurse practitioner training,
Oh, I did. When I was, where was I working?
you were working at you retired from the VA, so you spent most of your career working at the VA. And the VA did the nurse
Yeah.
practitioner training in Birmingham.
There were 4 of us that were sent to Birmingham to nurse practitioner school. And I really, really enjoyed that. And
Was that when you were alive?
I was in college down in Houston.
that part of my life is real body. But I know how much I enjoyed being there. I had a sister that was married, that was living in Birmingham,
Okay.
and that was a good time. The only real time I was ever around her very much, because she was always the little kid.
What's her name?
Virginia. Mary, Frances, and Virginia.
How about that?
3 most common girls' names in the South.
I was brought up in the North, you know. I was brought up in the North.
In the North? What part?
Chicago?
That's mid-country.
Yep. Northern Midwest.
Midwest. I've always thought that probably would be a very hard city to live in. Was it?
Yeah. Cold. Really cold. I grew up in a suburb, a place called Joliet. We had the prison. Now we got all the casinos. So we got it all going now. You can get busted at the casino and go to the prisons. Not a far trip.
How in the world did you get to Louisiana?
Well, it's a long story. And I had a teacher friend who, my parents couldn't afford college education, and his parents took me in, let me live with them while I went to college.
Very good.
And I became a Christian
Only
in
then?
college. So, it was a life-changing experience. Totally.
Oh, I'll bet.
Totally.
Now that's a story to tell.
I didn't grow up in a Christian home. So, I wouldn't have known God if he'd have run over me with a truck. Didn't think about it.
Well, how did you and Woody become friends? Through association?
I'll let Woody tell that story.
he had gotten a job as a student minister for the BSU. So after college, he went to do this student work. And one of the things that student ministers do was go knock on doors of new students. And I believe that my door at Colonel Vance's house was the first door he knocked on.
Have a great night.
And so I was his first encounter as a student minister in terms of knocking on doors. And it's like finding a bad penny that you can't get rid of. He's not been able to get rid of this bad penny. So
You just got, God was looking after you.
Yeah. Yeah, and Colonel Vance, I don't remember him being just real happy I was there.
he wasn't the ministerial type.
He looked at me pretty hard.
Well, I was also new in his house, and he was probably still sizing me up too.
Yeah.
So
Did you live in his house the whole time?
4 years.
Was it upstairs or something?
Yeah, there was a room upstairs. We had 3 people living in the room
Were they all shooters?
for the first 3 years. The last year, 2 of them had moved out, and he just let somebody else stay up there. But I was there all 4. It was a pit stop. I just,
Did you eat there too?
nope, just went and slept there, and
Where'd you eat it?
over at the dorm I had a meal ticket. So I'd eat over at the dormitory and bought a meal ticket every year, every semester.
Is that a part of your scholarship?
No, I had to come up with enough money to pay in-state tuition and a meal ticket, so it was about $500 a semester, which was pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
School was a lot cheaper back then.
And then I'd get all used books, and so, yep,
Yeah, why buy
pretty
a new
reasonable.
book?
Yeah. She heard the cat. There's a cat that comes and hangs out with her occasionally.
Really?
She can't hear me talk, but she can hear the cat 5 doors down.
Wow, that's amazing.
He was in the hall.
I know. I heard him.
He comes and gets on my bed sometime at night.
Uh-huh.
And he sleeps with me and my 4 puppies.
Who is the cat? Who has a cat here?
They've got a cat that is kind of the mascot here. It's been here for longer than she's been here. They call the cat Doc. And
Feed it and water it. And
Bet
you have
Doc's
to
doing
leave it
okay.
alone. You don't touch it.
her first day
You
here,
don't touch it?
she was in the room, and the nurse was taking the history and getting all the information, and this cat comes and jumps in her bed and walks around her and sniffs around, and the nurse told us about the cat, and then the cat left, and I asked the nurse, are we going to get a bill for a CAT scan now?
Oh. Because the cat scanned the room.
Mm-hmm.
See, he does have a sense of humor.
It's improving with his age.
That's great.
Someday, the time will come that there will be a service honoring you as a memorial service. What do you want to make sure is emphasized there, and what do you want that to look like?
Whatever it is, let people leave from that gathering knowing that I was looking down on them. Because I'm going to be in heaven.
Are there any particular songs that you're fond of, or any passages of scripture or verses or anything?
That's where my memory has really failed me with it, because I used to sing songs all the time to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And recite
Scripture.
verses, scripture. I'm just as blank right now as I've ever been.
Well, you mentioned how great thou art at one time. One time when we talked about this, you mentioned how great thou art. So I had that on
Oh, I love that.
my list. So
I love that song.
You like the song Count Your Blessings? Do you remember that song?
I like that one.
Name them one by one.
Count your many blessings, name them one by one. I was singing trying to sing my favorite just recently, and couldn't make it come out right. Couldn't remember the words. My favorite song.
well, take notes anytime you think about these things. Pass that information on to me.
Okay.
I always want things to go the way that you want them.
I just want people to know that I lived a happy life. My greatest belief outside my belief in God was that what we share with others is just building within ourselves. That doesn't make sense. I used to think something similar to that, but it did make sense. That doesn't.
Well, you may be getting tired, so you may not.
I've talked more than I have in a long time.
That's a fact.
We've enjoyed it.
So you may have talked yourself out.
We've enjoyed it.
You put up with it.
No. You lived a lot of life. It's interesting to hear.
Happiness has to come from within. You can't get it from anywhere, anyplace else.
Mm.
It has to be from within. And you can share it, but you can't give away real happiness.
Mm-hmm.
But if you share your happiness, that's one of the greatest things you can do.
Yeah.
If I wake up in the middle of the night some night and think of something, of course I'll call you at that time, because I may forget if I wake tomorrow.
Why don't we
My phone will take a message.
Why don't we just write it down? just make a
You know,
note.
there's this funny thing about my phone. I have it set to where only certain numbers will ring after 10 o'clock.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that true?
Yeah, just my wife's and my daughter's. Anybody else, they can't get me after 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that funny?
I usually mute mine where it doesn't ring for anybody after 10 o'clock.
He didn't ring. You know what Woody likes? He likes a Blizzard from Dairy Queen. Did you know that?
No.
That he loves those.
but only one certain type.
Butterfinger. There is only one type. That's the only one I know about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you did get some things from your mama. You like only certain things.
Well,
Certain kinds of certain things.
and there is chocolate within a Butterfinger.
Let me tell you.
Well, there better be.
Oh,
Yep. Yeah, Mom's fond of her chocolate and one particular type of chocolate.
What is that?
Dove's chocolate.
Dove? Oh, the little milk chocolate ones, or dark chocolate, or
Milk chocolate.
milk chocolate Dove. No nuts, just the chocolate.
Just Dove's chocolate. That's it. And he has kept me supplied with them, and I've gained about 10 pounds since I've been here. And that just re-verifies the fact that he's a great son.
Yeah, he's listening.
Dove chocolate and her Diet Pepsi.
Oh, Diet Pepsi too, huh?
So imagine if all those cans of Pepsi had 150 calories a can.
You know, when it comes to the chocolate that you bring and the Pepsis that you bring, I don't look at calories.
Well, I'm just talking
I
about,
think how I'm going to enjoy all of it. And do.
yep, she does. Okay.
John, I'm really glad to have met you.
Oh, I'm glad to meet you.
I'm glad that I have come, if I have come this far in life, that I have met you. Good plans to meet you again someday.
Well, thank you. It's nice to talk with you too, meet you. Yeah. I'm so happy you're doing better. You weren't doing very good last time I saw you. It was a tough time.
It's been a tough couple of years, last couple of years.
But you're doing good now. You look great.
Well, thank you.
Yep. Okay, well,
Thank you for wanting to meet me.
Most,
Now, I've heard a guy say, he says, boy, I remember your name, but the face isn't familiar at all. That's never my problem.
oh my. Oh. Well,
So,
I used to have a good memory. I can remember that. But
you can remember that you had a good memory?
I can remember that I used to have a good memory.
That's good.
But it's gone, and I let it bother me a lot for a while. And I decided, you know, if nature itself or the Lord, whichever, and I kind of equate the two, I feel that it isn't that necessary that I have a memory. Don't fret about it.
Well,
Just use what I have.
yeah. That's
If I
good.
have anything, when I don't, quit using it. For Pete's sake, quit using it. But,
Wow. Well, tell me where you grew up at.
so,
Where were you born and where'd you grow up at?
1929.
You were born in 1929. Where'd you grow up at? What town?
I'm a Louisiana girl.
Okay.
A small town called East Point.
East Point.
East Point. And I was reared in a slightly larger town, Coachella. There were
Kashal.
Indians all around, but I never saw one.
Huh.
They had, there were a lot of tall hills. We didn't have mountains, we just had tall hills that had Indian names. And the Indians had at one time occupied those places. But just a small town country girl.
Is there a town I would recognize the name of it's close to? Is there a town, a bigger town close to it that I would recognize?
Shreveport.
Okay. So in the northern part of the state.
It's about 45 miles south of Shreveport.
I've been to Shreveport.
Shreveport, you wouldn't recognize it now, since all the boats, the gambling
Yeah, casinos,
was there. Yeah.
all the money. Is that where you grew up, Shreveport?
Yeah, that's where I was born.
Shreveport. So you lived Shreveport for quite a while then.
Oh yeah, all my life until I had to move.
Till you had to come down here? I see. When did you move down here?
My memory doesn't go that far back.
That's okay.
Well, you actually went with Tim to Georgia, and you were living with Tim and Sonia out in Georgia for a while. And then you,
That's, what town was that? Was it Childress?
Statesboro was the town.
Statesboro, okay.
And then you lived with them out there for a while, and then I think you, somewhere in there, you spent a few months with Paul and Tammy.
And Tammy, when their young son was
Actually,
kindergarten
when you
age.
first retired, you moved up to Missouri, and then from Missouri, you moved back to Shreveport and worked for a little while, and then you moved with Tim to Statesboro, and then I think you spent another few months living with Paul, and then you went with Tim from Statesboro to Waco, and you stayed in Waco for a few years, and then you came up here for skilled nursing, and you've been up here ever since. So you've been living with family for
So I've been a wanderer.
well over 10 years. Well, we left out Big Spring, but that didn't last long.
Big Spring.
She moved out to work in a hospital in Big Spring for
Big
a few
Spring,
months.
Texas? In West Texas?
Yeah.
I see. When was that?
That's when I was in graduate school in California, so that would have been 78.
Tim was in the military and he was moved out there, stationed there for a while.
No.
No.
He was down in San Antonio for a while. And
San
he was
Antonio, that's right.
in El Paso for a while, but he was never living in Big Spring. But you were working at the VA out there for a little while, back in 78, 79, around that time.
If I don't get me some hearing aids, I'm going to have to get you an amplifier.
I'll try to talk louder.
You don't necessarily need to talk slower, but louder would help.
Okay, I'll work at it.
Thank you.
So how many people were in your family?
I had 3 sisters. One died in infancy, and my mother and dad and myself.
So you had,
I have 1 sister left.
okay. Is she older than you or younger?
4 years younger.
Ah, where does she live?
In Birmingham.
Okay.
I got a picture of her recently, and honestly thought it was myself when I looked at it.
Wow.
She was about 5'2" and very blonde, and of course her hair is about the color of mine now. But my niece, her daughter, says that the older her mother gets, the more we look alike, the two of us.
How about
I
that?
would never have thought that.
You didn't look like when you were younger?
No, not at all.
How about that?
I have found out through living a few years, and I'm 87, that God just puts all kinds of tricks on us. See how we handle it, I guess.
Well, you're doing good. Last time I saw you, you were up in the hospital.
Don't ever want to be there again.
And you weren't feeling too good.
I feel
You look
good
great.
for all things concerning.
Well, you look great. You look great.
I'm really doing better than I have any right to.
Well,
But I don't question it, because when I woke up and realized that I was still in this world, I said, God, you've got a reason for me being here, because I shouldn't be. He said, that's right. I said, well, tell me what it is, show me how to do it, and I'll do the best I can. And I've been trying to do that.
That's good. That's good. That's great. Well, you look really good now. You didn't look so good the last time I saw you. So you look really good
I
now.
needed that.
Well, it's true. I was surprised when I saw you because you remember when I saw her last.
Yeah, she was in ICU.
Yeah, you were in ICU and you weren't.
I don't ever remember seeing you.
Well, that's okay. You were in pretty big pain and you were in a lot of pain and it was a pretty aggravating time, I think. Really hard time.
Lots of hoses and needles.
Yes. Lots of hoses and
For
needles.
me, God mostly wants me to be patient with others. I think that's one of the biggies that He has had for me. And it's not, patience has never been my prerogative. I had 4 sons.
What was it like to raise 4 sons? What was it like to raise 4 sons?
The 4 that I had, it was not difficult. It was a challenge and so rewarding you wouldn't believe.
Were they very different?
They were all different. All of them.
How about that?
There are no 2 of you that are very much alike. You and John, I guess the oldest and youngest, are more alike than anyone. If they set out to do something, they will see it done or find out why not.
All 4 of them?
The
The oldest and the youngest. Yeah, I know that about him.
And his youngest son, brother is teaches junior high math,
Yeah.
and his
Would you get me out of here?
You bet.